Hi, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I am discussing some books under a very niche specific category, and that is going to be books with a rainbow cake on the cover. So basically, Queerly Beloved was a book that I saw in bookstores. I believe it is a 22 or 2023 release. When I saw it, I instantly thought about some other books with kind of similar fun covers. It just seems to be a thing for queer romance books to have sometimes a cake on the front of them, especially a rainbow cake. When I saw Queerly Beloved, it made me think about Paris Davenport is About to Crumble, and from there I was kind of like on a mission to find all the books with gay cakes on them, and that got me into Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding. There might be a few other ones out there, but these were like the instant ones that I found in my research, and I knew I just had to read them and discuss them, talk about them, and hopefully recommend them. And so after a couple months of spreading these books out and reading them, I can now finally discuss them as a group. And they're so cute and colorful together. Honestly, like, I know people really hate the illustrated covers. I mean, sometimes the faces are not super cute, but I don't know. There's just something about these kind of drawn covers that I find absolutely charming and lovely. They're bright, they're colorful, and in the case of queer romances, just like very gay looking, and it just makes me really, really happy. But that being said, the books themselves are not just fluffy romances, and we will definitely be getting into that in a minute. But let's kind of get a baseline for what these books are. My 3 picks for the gay cake category of books is that they are basically all adult romance titles, and they all are gay. I'm sure like there is a like rainbow cake romance book out there that is not gay, but like I don't want to read that. So let's kind of talk about what each of these books is, kind of give us a summary, give us a baseline so that we can talk about them in discussion with each other. So the first book I read for this series was Queerly Beloved by Susie Dunmond, and it is a single perspective adult romance novel following Amy. She is struggling with what she wants to do with her life, struggling to make ends meet. She works part-time as a baker, and the other amount of time she's working at a queer bar as a bartender. So there's a couple things that make this book really interesting in setting. One, this happens in Tulsa, so there is like that kind of tension of being in a conservative area, but also like a queer area as well. And this book also takes place in the 2010s, so before gay marriage was legal, and that is kind of a significant factor of this book. It's kind of scary to say now, but it is kind of a queer history book, or like a historical setting, I guess. It's not quite contemporary, is what I mean. And it is very intentionally set in a historical setting. But her life is kind of thrown upside down when the bakery discovers that she is queer. From there, she loses her job because of this, and she has to find another way to make ends meet, and she somehow gets herself into the job of being a bridesmaid for all these clients that apparently need bridesmaids to be paid for. And because of this job and the kind of situation she's in, she feels like she has to stay in the closet for these kind of jobs. And of course, it can't just be all this emotional turmoil, financial situation that's going on. She is also falling in love with this really cute woman who just moved to Tulsa, and there's kind of like this awkward messiness between the two as they're kind of trying to find their footing and kind of making mistakes with each other. But even though it is categorized as romance, I will say this is definitely Amy's story. It's about her discovering herself, kind of that existential quarter-life crisis kind of situation, and the romance does kind of fall out of the story for a little bit until it gets picked back in. It's a very cute, sweet romance, but it is not always the main focus. It is definitely a coming-of-age kind of queer story in this historical setting. For me, this book really worked. I gave it a 3.75 stars, and that's because it's got the mess. And yeah, that's what I like. Messy queer people making bad choices, making mistakes, discovering themselves, learning, growing, along with having a cute romance. After that, I read Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding by Chanika C. Higgins. So Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding is a more traditional romance in that it is both characters giving their perspective of the story, kind of having their own journey. And so the main premise of this story is that both of these characters are meeting and working with each other on a reality TV show where the premise is that they have to pretend to be dating dating. In fact, they have to pretend to be engaged, getting married, and kind of sneakily convince their families that this is actually happening, even though they've never met this person. So Devon is using this as kind of a way to come out to her conservative Christian mother, whereas Chris, who is an influencer, is kind of trying to use this a little bit as their big break, but also she feels like people just are always trying to be with her because of her status and just kind of seeing her as like a fun time versus like a partner. And so she really does want to find love on this show, and find love she does. Devon and Chris have an instant connection, an instant kind of chemistry between each other. The chemistry was so well written in this book, and so it's them coming together, kind of actually falling in love in this crazy situation, and kind of the ups and downs of the different kind of situations that they are in because of this reality TV show and because of where they are in their lives. So a little bit of mess, not quite as much as the other two novels, but it was a very delicious, fun read about these two characters kind of discovering each other and kind of finding that they could rely on each other. And then our final book in this category is Paris Dalencourt is About to Crumble by Alexis Hall. This is actually the second novel that I've read by them. I read the first novel of this kind of series, companion series, to prepare for this one, but through reading both of these books, I kind of fell in love with Alexis Hall's charming kind of characters and writing style and just kind of what they are putting out. This is kind of like the epitome of like messy characters kind of finding themselves stories, at least for this series, and it's gotten me really, really interested in reading the rest of Alexis Hall's work. I just really like what they are setting up in their books. But Paris Dalencourt is About to Crumble. Again, it is a companion, but you can read this first book without having read the other one, but this is following our main character Paris. It is again another single perspective novel, and basically Paris is a big disaster. He has a lot of social anxiety, has a very difficult time interacting with people, kind of a little bit of a recluse, and just like a giant disaster. Definitely dealing with some mental health issues, even if he doesn't want to admit it, and it's definitely him coming into himself, learning, discovering about himself, kind of a little bit having a mental health crisis and learning about that, and just kind of getting over his fear of failure, I would say. So again, another quarter life crisis type of book, another messy gay type book. And this, like the other book, is set on a reality TV show, but instead of a romance show, this is set on a show called Great Expectations, which is basically Great British Bake Off. And so he is set in this competition to bake every week, which is definitely stressing him out a lot. And all the while he is falling for this other contestant, and it's their relationship of just awkwardness, kind of getting off on the wrong foot, not really figuring each other out super well, and just kind of the mess of like figuring things out between them, juggling their expectations and misunderstandings for each other. And again, it's another very sweet romance that is not quite the main focus because there is so much other stuff going in Paris's life. So yeah, those are my 3 adult romance books with cakes on the front. This one was like a 3.75 stars. I loved the characters. I loved the campiness of the kooky setting and like story beats. I liked the historical element. I liked the romance, but my biggest thing is that I wanted a little bit more of that romance. It definitely felt like it dipped out of the story and kind of dipped back in. It was sweet, it was cute, so that's why I would have liked it to be more present. I think this is the one book where a second perspective might have helped keep that kind of idea of a romance novel a little bit more intact, but overall, 3.75 stars, really, really excellent, really, really fun. Had the mess that I personally look for. Devon and Chris plan a wedding. Sweet, fun, kind of sexy, really, really enjoyable, really, really cute. I think there is like a third act breakup moment, maybe, but it's a lot softer than these 2 other books. It's really these characters just coming together, discovering each other. This feels like vignette-ish in the fact that it's just like moments going through these characters' lives of them falling in love with each other. So like a lot less like messiness in that factor, but really, really enjoyable. I loved the element of family in here. And I believe I gave this like a 4 stars. Really cute, really sweet. And then Paris Dalencourt is About to Crumble, I think was another 3.75 stars for me. These were all kind of like in the same range as each other. This for me, a lot of people don't like it. It just doesn't work for them. They find Paris whiny. They don't like that this book isn't super heavy on romance and is a lot more focused on like that internal anxiety anxiety problems that Paris is going through. Personally, I loved it. It was messy. Paris was making all kinds of mistakes, was kind of falling all over himself, and sometimes I just kind of revel in that for a character. It's very cathartic for me. Like, as a romance book, maybe not the most romance heavy focused, but still really, really enjoyable, and got me really, really interested in this author. Honestly, I would read books from all of these authors again. I felt like I really discovered some new people that I hadn't read, but I think I am the most excited to read Alex's back collection just because they have so much material to read, and I just kind of love the campy quirkiness, the over-the-topness, the very like charming banteriness of the characters. Really, really fun. So I set out to read all of these books because they are all the same genre, they are all the same kind of age range, and because again they have like this kind of fun cover design that is very similar. But one thing that I didn't quite think about is because there is like a cake on the front, that means that these books are going to have bakeries and cake in them. I just didn't expect there to be that for some reason. Like, I know that's kind of obvious, but yes, there is that. This book, of course, has Amy as a baker. She really enjoys baking. Paris is on a baking competition, again, really enjoys baking. So there are those two having a similar element. So if you like kind of like a baking hobby, this is definitely, you know, two books that you could pick up. And the other thing that goes along with cakes, of course, is weddings. And I kind of didn't think about that being like a similar trope that would happen amongst these novels either. Because she is becoming a bridemaid for hire, there are those wedding elements of her going to different weddings, having to go to different functions, and fitting into those functions as a queer woman and a straight passing woman at that. Very interesting elements in here. Of course, it happens specifically in 2010's area for a specific reason, being that queer weddings are about to be legalized, and they do become legalized in the story, and that kind of discussion. And then, of course, this is another book where weddings is kind of like the main motivator in the story. So yes, if you're looking for like weddings in queer book, you got two options here. And the other kind of similar trope that I didn't think about happening or didn't expect to happen in these books is the reality TV show aspect. Honestly, it's something I really enjoy. I think it's just really fun and campy, especially because we don't really get a lot of queer reality TV shows, dating TV shows. And it is something that seems to happen a lot in queer books, maybe for this reason. I'm thinking a lot of The Charm Offensive as well. We have one book where the stress and the plot is happening because of the reality TV show aspect, and then we have a story where the reality TV show is bringing these characters together, bringing these families together, and is not quite as much of a stressful thing, but is more like a fun background thing that is happening. I would say all of these books have like some type of fun hook, some type of fun element, whether that be reality TV show or like wedding shenanigans. And I think that's a thing that really drew me into these books. Like, it's not just a contemporary romance, it's not just a coming of age story. Like, there's a lot of fun kind of campy elements going on. I say campy, but I'm also thinking of like fan fiction elements. I've discussed, I'm a fan fiction reader. I don't necessarily think fan fiction writing is bad. I think that there is just some level of indulgence to it, and when I'm reading fan fiction, I'm looking for something very specific, in being that I am looking for like, well, it depends on my mood, but a lot of the time what I'm looking for in a fan fiction is I'm looking for kooky craziness, like the most insane plot line, while also being very true to the characters. And I think that's what I love about this kind of fun, campy fiction romance, is that there's like this insane kind of almost not believable, kooky, rom-com style plot going on, but also like there's a lot of serious elements for all of these books, and it really is about these characters discovering themselves, coming into their own, dealing with different problems, having kind of a quarter-life crisis, and that really grounds the story into something maybe not believable, but really fun, but also really emotionally deep. And that's why I think I really enjoyed all of these novels. There just really was a similar kind of thread between all of these stories, and I feel like I've really found my niche in this adult romance sphere because of these books, and kind of discovering that, hey, yes, this is kind of what I like. But I do think it is interesting that there is a lot of similarities between these books, and not just like fun cake aspect of the cover. Which book would I read over one or the other? If you're looking for romance, that's what you want. You want sweet, you want cute, you want sexy, you want characters coming together, you're gonna have to pick up Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding. This is definitely the most romantic of the books that I read, and it's definitely the most balanced because you are getting both perspectives. It is more akin to like a traditional romance because you're getting both those flipping perspectives, and it really delivers. Like, I personally am not a love at first sight kind of girl. I really did believe like that instant connection, that instant chemistry between these two, which I think is really difficult to write. There was intimacy, there was interest, there was a little bit of lust and attraction, and it was completely believable and just really fun to listen to between these two characters. I really fell hard for their relationship, and I just really enjoyed it. Really great for a good romance read. If you're looking for just kooky campiness, but also a lot of heart, a lot of that historical elements that honestly might be a little bit surprising but fun. If you're looking for really well balanced story between like the characters and her family and her own internal stuff, her friends, the world outside her romance, you're gonna want to pick up Queerly Beloved. There are a lot of elements. Again, you're getting family, you're getting friends, you're getting internal stuff, you're getting outside stuff that is going on, as well as a romance. So like, again, not as much romance, but all of those other elements, it's just so well balanced, so fun to read. It's got everything you could want. And if you're looking for straight up mess, just straight up character that might be considered a little bit annoying to some people, but just like, you know, a character going through it, really figuring himself out, really struggling, making a lot of mistakes, doing a lot of like secondhand embarrassment things, maybe a little bit, you're gonna want to pick up Paris Delacourt is About to Crumble. Hall is great at writing banter, great at writing wit, but they're also great about adding these other elements of life, of stuff going on, more complex issues, internal problems, really great at writing cathartic struggle. So yes, while there's a lot of similarities between these books, they all have their unique charms, and I'm glad that I set out on this project to read these books solely based on these rainbow cake covers. I feel like I really discovered some fun queer books because of this, and I am going to be continuing to look for more books with this same kind of cover design. So if you have any more recommendations for that, I would love to know. Also, if there's like another thing that is similar between queer books, especially like their covers, you know, like how you see a World War II book and you know it's a World War II book because there's a lady on it, architectural detail in the background and a plane going over it. If there's something else like that for queer romance book covers, I would love to kind of know and make this maybe a little bit of a series. And I don't just mean the illustrated cover. I want something specific like this, like there's a gay cake on the front. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this project, read some really fun books, and honestly, I would highly recommend all of these reads. But yes, I hope that this was able to recommend some books to you. Hope you found something of interest if you are interested in this kind of genre, as I am becoming interested in it. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.